it to this specific topic. It's one that, you know, is definitely critical and definitely crucial at this point in time as we all deal with the pandemic and the situation at hand. So definitely appreciate your time and joining us, and to understand the issue of homelessness as it relates to here in Broward County, Fort Lauderdale, and the greater surrounding municipalities. So just a quick housekeeping on the bottom. If you would like to submit a question, if you don't want to remember it to the end, you can go ahead and send it in the chat. I'll log those and we'll address those at the end. We'll also open it up at the end for questions and a general discussion. So hopefully, I see that some of the folks that are on the meeting now, some of you are familiar with the Broward Business Council on homelessness, and some of you are new to this topic. We decided to do more of a broader overview, but also kind of touching a little bit on our programs, some of the success that we've had. So I think you're going to really enjoy the conversation. So over the past few weeks and months, we've been internally getting things in order in terms of being able to align our strengths as it relates to our internal staffing, to be able to give this program and initiative the boost that it needs. So we've assembled a dream team of sorts internally to this to United We End Homelessness. So leading us, of course, from the Broward Business Council of Homelessness is Lynne Wines. She's our chair. So jumping from a staff position to the chair position, Lynne Wines is joining us. Our Director of Public Policy and Strategic Initiatives is our staff lead. That is Heather Davidson. Our Director of Housing Initiatives is Yami Arbitman. And myself, Brandon Stewart, our Major Gifts Officer. So thank you all again for joining us this afternoon. I will hand things over to Heather to kind of give us an overview of what our discussion will look like.
Great. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I just really wanted to say hi and reintroduce myself. For some of you, we met at the very beginning of the Business Council back in 2018, and it's really good to see you all again. And it's so nice to just have people's faces on the side of the computer and to see people at this time, since we're all so isolated. Very quickly today, we wanted to engage with you to talk about where we are at with the Business Council, where we've been. Lynne is going to take us through that piece in our history. We really wanted to show you as well some of our other programs and best practices, which Yami, our Director of Housing Initiatives, will walk you through so that we can show some of our outcomes that we've had with our overall homeless programs for our veterans and our families, so that you have an understanding of all of the programs that we're doing under United We End Homelessness. And we'll have a chance to walk through how some of our service programs have changed in the community in the time of COVID and what we're doing to address that. And of course, then we'll open it up to have some discussion, conversation, and questions and answers. Before we get started, I wanted to just very briefly, because I love history, to talk about really what our community has gone through in terms of how we've addressed homelessness. It has been a long and storied history, and some on this call have probably participated in some of the activities over the years and know how interesting it truly is for our community. And starting back in 1980, we started to see some laws crop up for our homeless individuals that were a bit more punitive, that were focused on how do we get these individuals out of our community. That could be in terms of busing or enforcing fines for individuals who are going through or rummaging through garbage, and that being seen as something that was a crime for being homeless, a crime associated with being homeless. And in the 90s, we started to see a shift towards, let's make sure that we have spaces that these individuals are able to congregate, that we have services that are appropriate. And in our community, that was a contributing factor to us also having a tent city. One of our first tent cities that really got a lot of attention, and many folks in our community and in our service industry, our provider industry still are folks that were able to deal with this in the 90s. And, you know, really through the leadership of Wayne Huizinga and making sure that with his contributions in the business committee or the business community at that time, we were able to open our first hack, the Central Hack. And that was very much through his generosity. So, you know, looking into as we've moved forward, we have re-engaged with the business community. And when all of the sectors of our community come together is what makes Broward and what makes our homelessness initiatives really unique in this community. And I'm going to lead it with Lynne to go ahead and kick off talking about the wonderful history of the Business Council and just how much has been accomplished so far. So thank you so much again for being here. Hope you're all staying safe, and pass it on to our fabulous chair, Lynne Wines.
Thank you, Heather. Welcome everybody. And as some of you know, I recently stepped down as from my position as director of the Broward Business Council on Homelessness, but just want to let you know that I am actually more committed than ever to change the face of homelessness in Broward County. So we'll get started with the next slide, and what you're going to see is a picture of really a very small part of what the tent encampment, the homeless encampment, looked like outside of the main library on Andrews Avenue, the Broward County Main Library, back in November of 2018. So a little bit of history. Our great business leaders in this community, Mike Jackson and James Donnelly, were leading many initiatives, and Mike Jackson looked down from his window every day from the AutoNation building and saw this encampment, picked up the phone and called his friend James Donnelly and said, "We've got to do something about this. We are better than this." So they called on Kathleen Cannon and Bob Swindell from the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance and said, "Let's put our heads together and change the face of homelessness in Broward County." And all of us are forever grateful for their continuing efforts, by the way. So we spent a long time getting organized, bringing in many other parties, and formed a collaborative, which we'll go through a little bit. But just to let you know, we brought the entire community together, including the business community, the faith, the community government, so forth, and said, we're going to make a difference. So in 2018, in November 2018, actually a week after Thanksgiving, with everybody's help, many people, we got all the people living in the encampment into apartments. Not only into apartments, and it was a transition into hotels and then into apartments, but also got all of them wraparound services, which they needed. Some of them needed substance abuse, some of them needed job counseling, training, all different sorts of things, and we were able to do that. And on any given day, there were between 80 and 100 people living in that encampment in 2018. So on the next slide, you'll see the visual of how the community came together. The business community, along with the faith community, law enforcement, healthcare, nonprofits, and government, all pitched in and all continue to pitch in. There is no major city in the country that has been successful with addressing its homeless population without the business community and the other partners involved. And each member of this greater community plays a vital role, and it will take all of us to get individuals, families, and veterans into a stable lifestyle. On the next slide, you will see some of the statistics. This is from January of 2019, what is called the point in time count, which is mandated by HUD for us to send people out into throughout the community to count the homeless. Now, it's very important that everybody understands that these are people that are willing to self-identify as homeless. So in 2019, there were 2,803 people, men, women, and children, including 219 veterans that self-identified as homeless. Of those, 914 are chronically homeless, meaning that they have been on the street for more than a year and have some other condition, normally disabling or usually disabling condition. And then of 144 are families. Now, we've done another point in time count in January of 2020, but it has not yet been released by the continuum of care. So we wait to get those numbers. My personal opinion, those numbers will be greater. And these numbers are very underreported, particularly with families, because families are very concerned about reporting themselves as homeless. They're worried about losing their kids. And if, you know, some entity decides that they're not, you know, providing a stable housing situation for their children, which they're clearly not, they're afraid that their kids will get taken away. So it's very unusual for families to self-identify. And many people won't self-identify. So we always think that this is an under count of actual numbers. One of the things to point out is that people fall into homelessness every single day, which also makes it very difficult to rely on these numbers. For example, in Oakland, California, for every one person housed, one homeless person housed, 3 other people fall into homelessness. So it is an uphill battle, but a constant fight to try to get people stabilized. And that's the reason why we have got to help and continue to help. On the next slide is a couple of common misconceptions. So 1, government alone can solve the homelessness problem. Well, there are many people that wish they could, and there are many of us that want them to, but they just can't. And as I said earlier, there is not a major city in the country that has solved their homelessness problem without the help of the greater community, faith, not-for-profit, business community. There is nothing we can do to solve the homeless problem. Well, we are doing a lot to solve the homelessness problem, and you'll see in the next couple of slides how many people have already been housed. And while it doesn't look like a lot relative to the entire population, if it's you or your family, it's enormous, and it changes generations of people to get these people off the street and get them stabilized. So there is a lot to be done, including affordable housing, which we're hearing a lot about here in Broward County lately, job creation, and this is, of course, before COVID, but there will be a life after COVID again. And we're working every day, even including during COVID, to provide food and stability and safe resources for our homeless population. The next one is homeless population. The homeless people are mostly drug addicted. We went to this slide because I find this particularly interesting. If you start at the bottom, I'm not sure why this is listed the way it is, but this is a slide that we got from the National Alliance on Homelessness. And if you start at the bottom, job loss and loss of income, which is the pink, the largest piece of this pie, 22% of people that are homeless are due to loss of job and loss of income. 14% are substance abuse. So when people think everybody out there is homeless because of substance abuse, it is not necessarily true, and this shows that. 13% jail. Now, people get out of jail and want a stable life, want to get a job, want to get housing. It's very hard oftentimes to get jobs once you get out of jail. We have some great organizations in this community that are helping those individuals. But you can see as you go up the numbers on the right, particularly relationship breakup is 4%, and then divorce is 2%. So 6% are from relationship breakups where you lose part of your income. And you also go into sometimes a depression and a spiral of inability to function. Domestic violence and family problems make up 13%. And we see that, and I certainly know women in distress see that, family violence. People have to flee with absolutely nothing. So One of the other things, if we just continue on that, is people are homeless by choice or as a result of their own irresponsible actions. And while there is always, nothing is absolute, there are always some people that is going to be true. But as a rule, we find that there is much childhood abuse involved in people that end up homeless. Almost everyone has suffered trauma, some kind of trauma that has led them to be homeless. One of the other misconceptions is that people need to just pull themselves up by the bootstraps. And I will tell you that when we went into that encampment and housed the 83 people the week that we were in there, there were people going to work every day. There were several people going to work every day. But in Broward County, as you know, it's expensive to live here, and they could not save the $3,000 than when they were making $10 an hour and still had to pay for transportation and food and healthcare and everything we're all paying for. They couldn't save enough to get first class and security. So those people are now in apartments continuing to work and are now supporting themselves. So that's a great outcome. We'll go to the slide about Bruce. So my last story is, this is Bruce. Bruce was living in the encampment. He is 79 years old. Bruce had a business his entire adult life. He was a painting contractor, had his own business, had a home, had a wife. Bruce was continuing to work even as he got older, had a heart attack, could no longer work. During that time, his wife passed away, which obviously was a huge trauma for him, plus depleted much of his other income. Bruce had a second heart attack and lost his home. He had absolutely nowhere to go, could not find resources. Most people don't even know where to go for resources if they are available. And he ended up living in the encampment. So this is an example of someone that was never on drugs, not a substance abuser, worked his entire life. I am very, very happy to say that Bruce is housed and stabilized now. So thank you. And now I am going to hand it off to Yami.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Lynn. We're going to briefly discuss some of the best practices that have contributed to addressing our community's needs. Housing First is based on the right of housing and needs to be done quickly and efficiently without any preconditions. And preconditions are the lack of treatment, income, or criminal backgrounds. Individuals should start with stable housing immediately. Therefore, they can be able to address what their conditions are afterwards. Lynn, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, I was just asking because I didn't see anybody else. I apologize. The benefits of Housing First is basically you have the opportunity to engage in wraparound services. Wraparound services are there to encourage housing stability. Wraparound services include case management, housing counseling, employment services, medical, mental health, and substance abuse, among so many others that are needed to address your barriers and challenges. Wraparound services are strength-based. Services are designed for those with complex needs to provide ongoing supports. Go ahead and move to the next slide, Heather. On average, it costs our Broward County taxpayers about $47,000 for every unsheltered individual. So if you take the number that Lynn shared before, that was over 2,000 individuals, and multiply it by 47,000, that's a lot of money. The national average, of course, according to the National Alliance of Ending Homelessness, is about 35,000. The 47,000 is based off of our high cost of living in the Broward County area. And why is this? This is due to the lack of stable housing. Our homeless population cycles in and out of jails, psychiatric hospitals, inpatient treatments, which result in high public cost and poor health outcomes and premature death. How do we end this cycle? When we can collaborate with our partners to offer a variety of housing opportunities, we're able to promote housing stability. Heather, can you move to the next slide, please? As you can see on the bottom, the collaborative partners that we work with are the city and county governments, service providers, law enforcement, faith-based communities, private and individual companies, healthcare organizations, and they provide a variety of supportive services, such as job training and placement, benefit application processing, medical treatment, substance abuse treatment, and mental health counseling, and so much more. When I say this is not a one-size-fits-all, it's not. It's based off of the individual's needs and intensity. So rapid rehousing is short-term, it's brief, it's to provide short-term rental assistance, and the goal is to obtain housing quickly without, again, preconditions. We always want to say that an individual needs to seek substance abuse treatment or mental health treatment in order to stabilize. That's false. We need to provide housing immediately, because then they are out of immediate crisis and they can actually focus on their futures. Rapid rehousing is one of the less expensive interventions because it's short and it's brief. Permanent housing is long-term. It's for those individuals that have disabilities and need long-term intensive case management. Normally, this is partnered with affordable housing and community-based services. This intervention has helped decrease the number of chronically homeless individuals, and it's the most effective and cost solution to lowering public costs. And those are because we are lowering crisis services such as hospitalizations, jails, and prison time. You can move to the next slide, please. Since 2018, through our vast partnerships with our community partners, we have been able to house many families and individuals through federal, state, and local dollars. Some of those partnerships include Fort Lauderdale's Community Court, Homes United, the MAP program, the Salvation Army, Hope South Florida, Broward Housing Solutions, amongst so many others. It takes a community to address homelessness, not any individual and not any state entity. As Lynn mentioned, this initiative started in order to address the encampments. As you see, since January 2019, 83 individuals were housed. Currently, 79 are housed still to this day. Since then, an additional 208 individuals and families have been housed with the assistance of the Broward Business Council on Homelessness. As you can see, we've also housed 183 families and individuals through our supportive services for veteran families, which focuses on rapid rehousing and housing prevention services, 28 individuals and families through our GPD TIP program, which is a transition in place that can be up to 24 months. And this allows for veterans without any income to rapidly move into housing and have intensive case management to give them some time to stabilize and increase their incomes, and ideally to transition in the home that they are currently in. So that's a grand total of 502 families that have been impacted with all of our partnerships and assistance. But we still have so many others that need our assistance. As we all know, the pandemic has impacted our community. At this time, our focuses have changed. In order to address those changes, we've had to look at what we have going on right now and really focus on immediately housing our homeless. As we all know, the shelters are not accepting any new intakes. Outreach is not as profound as it normally is. So with the assistance of federal, state, and local dollars, we plan on housing individuals as soon as possible. United Way has a commitment to our community to fill the gaps in providing essential needs, such as emergency financial assistance and much needed meals. We have luckily partnered with 211 and 23 other nonprofit providers to provide financial assistance in order to facilitate those services. Next slide. So I'm going to introduce you to Christina. And what I want you to take from this is the positive outcomes when an individual is able to be housed. Heather, you can go ahead and put up the video.
Four years and a half. It started off from the drugs and the abuse. It was frightening. I done seen a lot of people being raped, a lot of hungerness, how we gonna get clothes, where we gonna sleep at. Nobody was out there like trying to help us. You feel like your family don't care. It made me feel relief when I draw. It just uplifts me from thinking about what's going on. How I feel to have a home? Oh gosh. I have a bed every night, a shower and a toilet, and somewhere to cook. That's amazing. I'm working now, new start, new chapter, new story. We still have another chance. I'm so grateful.
Okay, it's back to you, Heather.
Yeah, sorry, I'm figuring out how to share my screen again. Thank you all for your patience while I figure out the technicalities of Zoom and our new normal.
I do have to say I get chills every time I see Christina's video.
Absolutely.
And was thrilled and continue to be thrilled to know her and get to understand her life. And it's incredible what she's been able to accomplish, including getting her kids back.
That's a big accomplishment.
Absolutely. You know, there's so many good heartwarming stories, and I know we looked a lot at data today and just a couple of stories from our community, but truly together bringing all of the sectors and so importantly the business community, we are truly able to impact and change lives, and just seeing a small snippet of that is so important. And of course during COVID we are seeing a lot of changes to our services, and our focus has to remain on how do we mitigate homelessness, people becoming increasingly homeless in our community due to a lack of employment at this time. How do we continue to focus on housing first, as Yami so beautifully explained, and making sure that that is at the forefront of what we are doing. So looking forward, we have our work cut out for us. We look forward to working with all of you to make sure that this becomes a reality, and we are supporting our community and our individuals and our families who are experiencing homelessness at this time. I'm going to pass it back to Brandon to wrap us up, to make sure we get some good discussion going and some good questions and answers. So Brandon, sir.
All right, thank you all. Just a quick update that Sandra Einhorn is also on the call with us. So thank you, Sandra. She had some information related to the National Low Income Housing Coalition, who has some an update about housing and homelessness as it relates to COVID that she just wanted to share for us. So please go ahead, Sandra.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Brandon. And thank you everyone who is on the call. I wanted to quickly mention, as chair of the Broward Days Housing Impact Team, I have been sending a lot of updates around housing and homelessness related to COVID-19. So if you are interested in those updates, please reach out to me via email. I am going to post the website in just a second, but the National Low Income Housing Coalition does have a specific COVID-19 website up. It not only provides a CARES Act analysis related to housing and homelessness, it has a database for evictions and foreclosure moratoriums.
I need help closing this out.
It has a map for housing instability. It has recommendations from the National Low Income Housing Coalition, so an advocacy call to action. But then it also discusses, in the first rollout of the CARES Act, some of the different funding sources for both affordable housing needs and also for homelessness. And it also talks about some shelter closings and recommendations and best practices, which of course we are already doing. So let me go ahead and post that here for everyone. So that, what I posted here on the chat, is the resource link for the coalition. And then here's my email address in case anyone wants to be added to the Broward Days housing impact team. There is a lot of money relative, certainly not enough to meet the need, but there is several hundred millions of dollars out of the CARES Act that is going towards a variety of different housing programs and homelessness programs. We do recognize, of course, that housing instability is going to be a much bigger issue. We know that over a third of people were not able to pay their rent on time in March, and we expect that number to go up pretty significantly, unfortunately, in the month of April. Of course, if you cannot pay rent, a lot of landlords are then having issues paying their mortgages. So it is to be determined how this will impact the housing industry as a whole, but we can expect that the affordable housing situation, unfortunately, is most likely going to get worse. So what the Broward Business Council on Homelessness does is more relevant today than ever. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Heather. Thank you to everyone who is working so hard to address this issue. I remain a staunch supporter and a partner, and I am here for all of you. Thank you, Brandon.
All right, thank you, Sandra. All right, anyone else? If you had a question, please go ahead and submit it through the group chat. One of the things that was mentioned earlier was in relation to the number of individuals and families within Broward County that are on the margins, that are on the cusp of, let's say, one crisis away from either needing services. We call that our ALICE population. ALICE is an acronym. It's Asset Limited, Income Constrained, but Employed. So these are our working individuals, working families that are sort of on the margins. And in Broward County, that number is roughly close to 50%. And the trend seems to be that is climbing, and especially within now that we're dealing with the pandemic. I think we're seeing a lot of the gaps in service that are out there. That's our role, and that's what the Broward Business Council is poised to do. Is with your support, it gives us flexibility and the ability and the capacity to fill those gaps and address those needs and be responsive in a way that sometimes some other organizations and maybe government isn't really able to do. So we've been able to create this collaborative that is built on that community impact model. So it, like Lynn said, it does take a village, and bringing together all strengths from all different areas within the community. That's what we're here to do.
Brandon.
Thank you, Carol Mitchell, who just shared that we currently, oh yes, I'm sorry, go ahead, Heather.
Oh, go ahead. I was going to share Carol's comment as well, so go ahead.
Oh, okay. Carol Mitchell, who is the district liaison for the Broward County Public Schools Homeless Education Program, just shared that we have over 4,300 students that are currently identified as experiencing homelessness. And that is literal homeless, that is couch surfing, that is a number of different ways. But regardless, that's a disturbing number to say the least. So one that we're hoping to address, in addition to our families, our veterans especially, we've had great success with our veteran population. The other question that just came in is, can you update us on the encampment as of today, in terms of I'm guessing the numbers where those folks are still housed. So Yami, if you wouldn't mind chiming in on an update from our encampment folks. We periodically receive updates from the county as it relates to our encampment folks. So yes, please.
So as I mentioned earlier, currently out of the 83 individuals, 79 are still housed, and that is composed of 53 separate households.
So this is Kathleen. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Folks know that this is an enormous social issue. It has gotten worse since COVID. There are folks that are at the library Folks are not allowed to set up tents anymore and kind of be there permanently. However, there is many folks milling around, socializing.
Mm-hmm.
Folks know that the day respites had to close. Shelters cannot take new people in. They've really managed their COVID. They don't have any cases of COVID in the shelters, which is good, and they want to keep it that way. But even before COVID, we did see people going to the libraries and milling around. So we have attempted to continue to do meal sharing, and we funded more meal sharing programs in the community so that folks can get food and not go to the library. Lynne, Brandon, Yami, everybody's done an outstanding job trying to get all the do-gooders that go to the library to hand out food to not do that, to not attract people there. The Fort Lauderdale Police Department and the city, there is constant conversations and communications, but we realize, you know, it is an issue. Now the initial, and I'm going to use the word sweep, but it was a beautiful humanitarian sweep. Those folks are housed, took housing, in housing, still getting services, case management.
Mm-hmm.
We are subsidizing some of their rents still. And some of them are getting benefits, and obviously many went back to work and now taking over their own rent payment. But we do have to go person by person, name list by name list. We have to work again with the county's done a great job, the city's done a great job. It is a big lift, and we do recognize that there are many more people that are at the library now that were not there initially, and kind of socializing in a sense. So we are, again, attempting to work with that. We've met with the city police, the city manager, even the library people and the women's center that is there, really trying to attempt to have permanency. This is a really hard time right now. I did sign some leases, 7 or 8 leases over the last couple of weeks. So there is still, we are still housing, permanently housing folks. There will never be enough inventory. So that is something that we as a community will absolutely have to tackle in the future, about small, affordable rentals where people can afford to rent and work. We mentioned the ALICE report. I will just quickly, we will be publishing the 2020 ALICE report, Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Employed. It is about people that are working, doing all the right things, but absolutely cannot make their ends meet. And as you heard Lynne say, cannot save enough money to do first, last, and securities. So we'll be publishing that, more information to come, but I did want to share that we do recognize that there are many more homeless that are on our streets, and attempting in a community collaborative effort to continue to make sure that they're housed, and if not housed, that they are being serviced in some way with case management, with food at the meal sharing places, getting some type of assistance and service. All right, thanks guys.
Thank you, Kathleen. Rob Cornerans asked about the support going to LifeNet for families. That would be any either emergency relief or assistance for families. So I'll hand that over to Yami.
Brandon, that I am not sure about. We'll definitely have to get back to Rob on that.
No, I can tell you right here. So we have funded over 25 organizations just since COVID had started. We might be up to 30 for emergency financial assistance. We've also, all the 105 organizations that we were funding beforehand, we've lifted all restrictions. They don't have to provide the service they were providing. We're going to continue to pay them. We want all nonprofits to keep their doors open, to do the best that they can to serve their clients, even though it's all different now and they're not serving their clients in the same way or doing the same programming that we have funded people for. So one commitment we made was that for the nonprofits. The second, we have funded, I think we're up to 30 organizations for emergency financial assistance to serve their clients. LifeNet for Families was one of those organizations. I think Hope South Florida might be on the call here. They are one of those organizations. I think we funded 2 FTEs at 211. We funded FTEs at Feeding South Florida. We've done everything from the Boys and Girls Club to the YMCA to the hearing impaired. I can't go through the 30 list, but Yes, Rob, we are recognizing that Life Net for Family is feeding folks. I think yesterday, the day before, we delivered masks, hand sanitizers, gloves. I think we have doubled the food deliveries. I think many folks on the phone know that we do a program called Project Lifeline. On a weekly basis, we deliver fresh food to 25 food banks, and that's meats, fish, vegetables, fruit. That's usually a once a week delivery. We have increased that to twice a week delivery, trying to make sure that all the food banks, or at least the ones that we support through Project Lifeline, that they have enough food to serve everybody, because this is very difficult times. So I don't think through philanthropy we'll be able to fund every organization and make everybody whole and provide enough emergency financial assistance to prevent everybody from falling into some type of catastrophe here. But we are blanketing the community. We are trying to fill pockets. We understand that people won't be evicted and their car won't be repossessed or they won't be foreclosed. However, they're still going to owe that rent and they're not working. So we're trying to fill those gaps with emergency financial assistance through the entire community, especially the most vulnerable population. So Rob, thanks for the question.
Hi, Kathleen. This is Maria. I just want to add a little bit to your answer in regards to our funding for the additional funding for LifeNet for families. We divided the funding into categories. A big portion of the funding was for emergency assistance for their clients, but the second part of the funding was to support their administrative expenses, because we understand they don't have as many volunteers as before. So we were able to support them so that they can hire additional staff if needed. In addition to that, we have been providing them with additional supplies, such as gloves, masks, and things like that, like Kathleen mentioned.
And this is Lynn. Rob, to answer the other part of your question, which is the $3 million, you have a year. Unfortunately, it hasn't been a year. But we have raised, it hasn't been $3 million a year that we've raised, but we have raised about $4 million for this effort. And that has gone to some of the things you've heard about now, supporting other entities, as well as housing, including the encampment, close to 300 people and families, providing transitional housing, stable, then apartments for them, furniture, wraparound services. And so actually, if you take the 300 families times the 20,000 estimate, it's 6 million. And we've been able to do that with $4 million, get these 300 individuals and families off the street. So we continue to have people that with only a few months of support, they can be independent. And that's why the money can move on to support another family. But we continue to try to raise money, of course, but unfortunately it hasn't been the $3 million a year.
No, I just remember going to that breakfast and that, the goal was to get a sustainable, amount of money over a few years to really solve the problem. And I didn't really hear much after that. If that mission was still going forward, I think Andy was, or I forget who was going to lead that, but I was just curious. Haven't heard much on that.
Yeah, it is still going forward and we're still trying and housing people every day.
Great. No, you're doing a great job. Thanks.
Thanks, Rob.
All right. One of the things that we wanted to bring up were ideas for future topics. I know we have a few of our service providers that are on the line, and thanks for joining us. The next one that we're going to focus on is our update to the city of Fort Lauderdale. Some of you may know that we've partnered with the city of Fort Lauderdale now in our second year. The results from that first year are in a report that is published on our website, unitedweendhomelessness.org. The current update to our current fiscal year is going to be submitted to the city this month. So sometime in the late May timeframe, we'll do another one of these Zooms so we can delve into that report, give you an update as far as where our programs are currently, and give you a little bit more of the breakdown as to how how the funding is going there. So thank you all for definitely for joining us. I know that this is a broad topic. We can go in a lot of different directions with it. We just wanted to kind of give you an introduction for the folks that are new to this, but also kind of give you an update about where we are as an organization in addressing homelessness. Heather, go on to the next slide, please.
Brandon, before we go to the next slide, can we address one of the questions came in reference to veteran services in Broward County? So if there are any homeless veterans in Broward County or veterans that are potentially going to lose their housing, especially being impacted from COVID, we're asking them to call into 211. As Sandra mentioned, the federal government has provided some additional funding through the CARES Act. And I can, gladly report that the Veteran Administration has received over $200 million to go into housing specifically for veterans. And because we are currently a grantee, we are going to be getting money in the near future. However, our focus at this time is to house veterans immediately. So if anyone knows or identifies a veteran, please have them call our 211 and they will immediately be referred to us and we will be in contact with them immediately. As you know, we are, everyone is virtually working, and I can say that our team is out there still engaging veterans, still moving veterans into housing. And one of the biggest increases in drives that I have seen from this effort is that we've had a lot more mom and pop landlords who rely on their income from rentals contacting us, and we have been connecting them with veterans. And as Kathleen mentioned earlier, last week we had 7 veterans move in. We have a couple more moving this week because our drive, like I said earlier, is to get every individual we can into housing immediately, especially our individual veterans and families. So please have them contact 211 and we will definitely get in contact with them immediately. Thank you, Brandon.
All right, thanks for that update, Yami. That's very, very important information. So I thank you for bringing up veterans and definitely, for the information there. So to wrap up, I think a lot of folks, want to leave. Okay, well, what's next, and what can I do to help get involved? Number one is what we're doing now. We're educating and building awareness around this. That's one of the main things that we try and do on a daily basis, is elevate these topics, these issues to the front of mind, into the conversation of what's happening here in our community. Community engagement and advocacy. Rob brought up a great point. How are we addressing sustainability? That is a long-term effort, but it starts now. Actually, it started yesterday, to be quite frankly. But that is a huge thing that is going to allow us to reach not only more families, but to keep this going well into the future. So community engagement and advocacy, not only on a local level, but the state level as well. And that is our Director of Public Policy, Heather, that leads efforts not only for homelessness, but in a number of issues that we fight for here at United Way. Landlords remain a big thing for us because, like we've said, the cost of living is only rising, but having a cohort of landlords that understand what individuals and families are going through, and sympathetic to their situation and want to give them an opportunity to get back on their feet. So being able to offer units that may be below market rate in an effort to help someone get back on their feet goes a long way. So we've been able to partner with a number of landlords along the way. And I know Dwayne Meller's on the Zoom call with Homes United and the folks at Core Ridge. They've built out a number of homes that are partnering with landlords. So it's a model that's working. We just need more of those landlords that are willing to step up. And employment, of course, once they get back into their home and back on their feet, employment is a big thing to help them stay housed. We definitely put an emphasis in our programs on keeping folks housed, not only getting them into housing, but making sure that they're in their house, not only for the 6 months, a year, but 2 years down the road. And employment is a big thing. I know it's tough in this climate, but once we climb out of this and get back to normal, thinking outside the box in terms of who we hire and how that process takes place. But the biggest thing above all else are the dollars. So the support, the financial support that we can all raise in terms of dollars that we can put towards this ultimately make the biggest difference. We showed you the difference in what it takes to actually house someone versus actually keeping them on the street. And for a lot of the business folks, that is a no-brainer. That's the return that you're looking for. So the financial support that we need to elevate this and to house the next 500 individuals and families, that's what we're looking to build here. It takes a community. So yes, the business community, the individuals, the advocates who are in this on a day-to-day basis. We thank you. But this is a long-term effort. We are in this fight, as Kathleen said, for the long haul. But it is going to take a significant effort in that respect. So if you would like to continue that discussion on how you can support the Broward Business Council and our United to End Homelessness, please feel free to reach out to any of us. On your screen now is our contact information. We would be more than happy to continue this discussion offline. And so just want to wrap up and say thank you all again for your time. We will have more of these, so please be on the lookout. If you do not receive our United Way or our Broward Business Council updates or emails, please let us know. We want to get you tuned in. We want to keep you updated to this topic. So thank you all again for your time today. We wish you a safe and healthy rest of the week, and especially throughout this time. And question just came in, will you be sharing the recording? Yes, we'll go ahead and post the recording of this. So thank you all. Until next time.
Thank you. Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, community.